Okay, so we are still in the concepts of Azure virtual machines, right? Or you can also call it as compute. Right, so we were discussing about certain settings that which are part of a virtual machine the other day. All right, so today what we do is we'll try to understand few concepts that which are needed for us in day-to-day activities, right? So first one is extensions, second one is disk management, and third one is network interface cards. Okay, so we'll try to understand these three things. If time permits, then we'll try to discuss something about imaging concept. Okay, so I don't think time will permit, but we'll see. Right, so okay, so yesterday or day before yesterday, when we were creating a virtual machine, right? So during the creation, we did see an option there called as extension, right? So now what is this extension? Now as discussed, so extension will help you with performing some post installation activities or post provisioning activities. Now if you provision a VM, there might be certain activities that which you want to perform. Might be installation of some software, or might be installation of some features or roles, might be a deletion of certain things, or might be hardening of your server itself, right? So there could be n number of what do you call it as reasons, or n number of requirements. Now how do you attain it? Do you want to go and perform those activities manually? Then definitely not, right? Now for those things, what you have is you have something called as extensions. There are other ways of doing these activities as well, but one of the solutions that what we have is the extension. Now extension, you need for extension to enable, or for a software to be installed using extension, you did not have to get into the VM. Now all these activities you are performing from the portal of Azure, and you are kind of executing those tasks within that VM, right? Right, give me a minute. Sorry for that, I have to close the door. So you are performing those activities from the portal, which means that you are not logging into the server itself. So you are configuring or enabling the extension. It could be a custom script, as I said. It could be a desired state configuration. It could be an agent like Puppet or Chef or anything for that matter. That is the actual use of your extension. Now, when I provision a VM, let us say I have this VM called my VM. During the provisioning, I can go and specify if I want to enable this extension. During the provisioning itself, in the management blade, you will be asked, boss, provide me the extension if you want to use, or let me know if you want to use the extension or whatsoever. Now this VM is already provisioned. Now for already provisioned VM, you can come back to this option called as extensions and use this add option and enable the extension. Now here you are not working directly in the server. What you're doing, you're using the portal and configuring it. Now there is something that which we need to aware, that how does this work actually. Now okay, so I'm enabling this. Then is there anything that which will help us to go and install or configure whatever is defined in the script? Now for that, there is an agent that which runs on your VMs, which is called as Azure VM agent. So Azure VM agent is the agent that which will help you to kind of execute those commands whichever are defined in your script, or execute any activity that which you defined here in the, what do you call it, as extensions. So a VM agent is a kind of agent that which will be running on your operating system, and which will interact with your fabric controller or with all these stuff, right? So we discussed what fabric controller in our earlier discussions. I don't want to cover that, but yeah, so that's what it is. So a VM agent is a critical part in this. So all the machines that which you provision using Azure Marketplace images, when I say Azure Marketplace images, all the default images that which you get here, right? So when we go to the machine provisioning, you'll get a bunch of images here. These are all images provided by Microsoft. They are called as marketplace images. All these are all marketplace images. Now all these images will have this agent installed by default. And what is this agent? Azure VM agent. Now if you are having your own custom image, you need to make sure that the VM agent is present on those machines as well. Either you should be making that as a part of the custom image that whatever you are providing, or you have to have a way to install it at least after the provisioning of the VM. It's very important, right? So for marketplace images, I need not have to install anything. I need not have to kind of go and manually install it. It is installed by default. I'll show you that. Now if you go to this extension, there is one default extension that which you see. What is that? It is VM diagnostic settings extension, because I enabled diagnostics. That's the reason this is enabled. So if you add your own extension, that will be listed here. If you add your own extension, that will be listed here. Okay. Now, so let us say this is the VM, and this VM, I want to kind of go and let us try some small things. I'm not going to go and make it very complex, but we'll try it. We'll try to, let me get into this VM. Okay. Okay, so I want to go and use custom scripts in this particular extension. So how do I use it? I can go to the extension and click on add, and then I'll go to the custom script extension. Now what does it say? Custom script extension is a tool that can be used to automatically launch and execute VM customization tasks post configuration. When this extension is added to the VM, it can download the PowerShell scripts and the files, and it will launch them. So where does it download? It will download to the VM itself. So from here, it will download to the VM and it executes those commands. We'll try to understand that. Don't worry much about it at this point of time. So I want to create a custom extension. Go and create it. Now what does it say? Bus provide me the script file. So you will be providing that script file, that whatever you want to, what do you call it, as whatever those commands you want to be executed, will be putting that as a part of a script, and you providing that PowerShell script here. So let us say I want to go and let us write a small couple of lines. Let us say we'll try with a directory mkdir make directory. I will say that where I want to create it in C:\demo or Azure demo. Let us say we want to make this directory. We want to create this directory, let us say. Right, I'll save this file. I'll put this somewhere here, and I'll name it as extension demo, let us say, right? .ps1. All PowerShell files will be saved as .ps1 extension. Okay, so I'm putting that here. Right. So I am just putting one small command, which is make directory. And what does it do? It goes and creates a directory on your guest machine or on your VM. Now I need to use this script, let us say so. And what do I need to do? I need to go and what do you call it as access this, right? So let me go to the directory where I did include this extension demo.ps, right? So you are now trying to upload a script. Now if this script needs any argument, then those things can be included here. But my script, that whatever I have doesn't need any argument, so it will be blank. So what I need to do is I need to go and, so what does it say? Install the extension, right? It installs this script as an extension. So I said okay. So what does it do? It initializes the deployment and it installs that custom script. So once it installs that custom script, your VM will automatically execute that script, and you should be able to see the directory that whatever you specified there here within the C drive. Right, we don't see that yet, right? So the demo extension folder, we don't see it yet. But once it is executed, then you will be able to see what is that, whatever the commands that which are part of it will be executed. Still deployment in progress. We'll try to understand that once it is deployed. Let us wait for the deployment to complete. Now, using this custom extension, you can install softwares as well. Now, let us say that you have a bunch of softwares that needs to be installed, and all those softwares should be accessible from your VM, right? So that is very important. So from whatever the VMs where you are executing the script, you need to make sure that the path that whatever you are defining for your software should be accessible from the VM. That we will see when we understand the storage and other stuff. Then we'll try to understand how do we use a file share and other stuff. But at least at this point of time, we'll try to understand using small examples. Right, so let this deployment complete. It is still in progress, it says. Right, now you can see there's a custom script. Now the type is under compute. There is an extension called as the what do you call it as custom script extension, and then status is transitioning. Right, so we'll try to see if we have folder. Right, you can see Azure demo folder. So it's not that you need to put the extension only during the VM provisioning. That's what I'm trying to explain to you as well. Now post provisioning as well, you can go and add extension at any point of time, but you need to make sure that if that needs a downtime or doesn't need a downtime and whatever the tasks that which you are performing, based on that you can take the action. Okay, now so this is one small example. Now let us try to understand a little bit more. Now as I was saying, this extension that whatever you are using will be downloaded. Now you see here something called as packages. Within the packages you have here something called as Microsoft Compute Custom Extension, right? and then within you have a download folder, right? Now let us see what is there in this download folder. Now there is a folder with a number 0, and what do you see here? If I open this, what do you call it as PowerShell command, PowerShell file, what do you see here? The same file that whatever we uploaded. So what it means is, so when you use an extension, the extension will be initially downloaded to the VM itself from where it executes. Now, if you update this particular extension, or if you are deleting this extension, then it will be removed from here as well. We don't say deleting, uninstalling the extension, we'll call it as, right? Now, let us say that I have a requirement to make this server as a web server. Another simple example we'll use. Now, for that, I will go and use a small Windows command. We install -Windows future web-server, right? So what does it do? It goes and makes your server as a web server. Now, before we go and execute it, let us make sure that we don't have this web services enabled on this one. How do I check it? Local host. Right, you don't have any web services. So let us say that I want to install this particular role on the server. Let me go ahead and save as. Right, I'll refresh the existing. Now the question arises: will I be able to update the existing extension that whatever I uploaded? Now, if you see it, I don't see any option for what do you call it as updating the extension that which is already there. Now, what it means is you need to go and uninstall the existing extension, and then you have to reinstall with the changes. That is very important, right? So I need to go here and uninstall the present extension, or I can add another custom extension as well, right? I can add another custom script extension. Let us say I want to go and uninstall this one, right? So I can do it from here itself, right? I can uninstall from here, or I can also go here and uninstall it. Either way, it's the same. It basically removes the extension. Now, when I remove the extension, will it remove the items that whatever are configured by this extension on the server? No. It just removes that extension, that's all. Your folder that which you created earlier is still there. It will not be disturbed, right? It is still there. So uninstalling the custom extension here, that whatever you uploaded will not revert the commands that which are part of your extension. It only removes the extension from the portal. Now, once I remove this extension here within the package, if I go back and look at these downloads, this will also be removed in a while. It's gone, you can see it, right? So what you need to understand here is, so when you have an extension, there will be a similar file that which will be downloaded. If it is a script extension, it will be downloaded here, which will help you to troubleshoot in case if you are seeing some issues, right? Okay. Now this extension is gone, you can see it, but it is still saying that it is uninstalling it. Let us wait for that. Yeah, successfully uninstalled virtual machine, yeah, extension. Let us say I want to, so let us go and use the same custom script extension once again. and then we will try to use the updated script, right? This updated script, I'll use that. This time, because you already have a folder that which is part of that, right? So that will not be created because you already have this folder. Now what it does, it goes and installs a role called as Internet Information Services, IIS, which will make that as a web server, right? So let us wait for this extension to complete. So this extension is available for both Windows as well as Linux, custom extensions for Windows, custom extensions for Linux, right? So you can use this for both of the both type of what you call it as operating systems.
So, Vijay, this extensions in an organization, can it be, automated for on a role based?
No, so these are all. So when you say role based, you're saying that if somebody gets into the VM, he should get only a certain application kind of stuff. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, something like that. Yes.
No, it is basically at the VM configuration level, not the control of access. Actually, it is not. It cannot be used to control access. It is basically the configuration that which you want on a server for all users. It will be available. It's basically how do I put it? Any configuration, any installation, anything, but not to control the user access or whatsoever, right? Not at the user access part. But for example, I'll also quote, let us say there is a folder and you want to give some permissions to some, that can also be executed here. That's how, in that way you can control certain things, but not, there is no, what do you call it as centralized methodology where I can go and control the user access, right? So here, everything you do, it could be a script, it could be an application, it could be a desired state configuration. That's all. Hope you got it. Okay, so let us go back to the same plugins, same extensions, same downloads, this folder. Now you see an updated, what do you call it as file here. Now if you go and refresh this, now I see a role called as Internet Information Services installed, right? Now there are a couple of other things that which we will be discussing when we discuss about what do you call it as troubleshooting part, but there is a folder called as Windows Azure here, you see, right? Now within this you will also see some logs, right? So these logs, it's not just for the extensions, but even for all the other activities that which are executed, you will be able to see them here in these logs. But at this point of time, I'm not going to discuss this, but remember this folder. Okay, so you can also verify these logs to troubleshoot in case if you are seeing any errors. Okay, so that will come back when we discuss about what you call it as troubleshooting, extensions and other stuff. But yeah, that's what it is. And of course, if you are installing some app or something, and how do I know that whether it is executed correctly or not, right? So you can go and look at your logs, and you can see there are events that which will tell you what it is done, right? Selectable update, IIS package is successfully turned on, right? So you will see all those all those logs that which will help you to identify, right? So whatever the things that which you executed. Okay, now that's very important. Now, okay, so this is the usage of custom script. Now, apart from custom script, you have other agents and other stuff as well, right? So you can play around with these things. If you have some other things that which you want to play around, then just try to play around with these things. It's very easy and easy to understand, not that complex, but very frequently used what do you call it, as solution for performing certain activities on your VMs. Okay, right. So this is about extensions. We'll come back to this when in our troubleshooting classes to understand how do we troubleshoot and other stuff. But yeah, so this is your extension. Now, as I said, during the VM creation, you can specify, or even after the VM creation also, you can specify your custom, what you call it, as scripts. Okay, right? Now, any questions on this part on custom scripts or extensions? We can discuss. But yeah, so very important is this agent should be running. Now, if this agent is not there, then your custom extensions will not work. Let me show you that one as well. That service. Yeah, this is the one, right? So this is the agent that which is need to be running. So if you are doing a migration from on-prem to cloud or something, on-prem to Azure, then you need to make sure that you are having this agent installed before you migrate. Those things we'll discuss when we discuss about migration classes. But yeah, so these are certain things that which are very much needed. This agent is critical. Okay, so very important. Okay, any questions on this part? Okay, so I'll take it as no. If you have anything, keep. We'll also come back to that. Just
Vijay, you think you can give a demo on installing that control M, which you actually tried to do initially, but
control M
extension. If you go to the extension of the VMs.
Okay, extensions. Okay, this agent, control M agent. Okay, so I haven't tried this, but we can. This needs see certain agents need some configuration, right? For example, you are configuring a chef agent or a puppet, or even I think this is a BMC extension. This needs some configuration, right? So you will be providing this, but if it doesn't allow, then some extensions will do allow to install it. Let me see. I can go with puppet agent.
That is the IP of the server we created, or
No, see, this will be the, see, in Puppet, there is something called as master server to which this agent will interact. Similarly, the one that which we were trying, you said, right? So the BMC one, what is that? That also
control
does
them,
need a
control
control agent. So that also needs a server to which it will interact with, right? So that those are the things that will be, these are inputs that which are needed for, these agents to be installed. Azure pipelines, it will also. So I'll do one thing. Let me see what if I can get another example. Maybe I'll try to play around with one of these agent. Even backup, I think it will ask you your backup server and other stuff. Yeah. So this need a cloud backup of this one. I'll see. Maybe the best thing I could do is I'll try to download some small application and see if we can install that application using custom script kind of stuff. And if there is any agent without this, most of the agents does need this servers or whatsoever, right? So I'll try to look at if there is anything that which is available without this agent, but you can try it and there should not be a problem.
Sure. So, for instance, if I want to install Jenkins, you think I can search and see whether Jenkins is available and then install? Because Jenkins is easy, right?
So if it is not there here, for example, right? So if Jenkins, I don't see it here. Now, you have an option to go and put that in a custom script. That's what the use of the custom script is, right? Now, if that needs some configuration, that needs copying some files and installing it, then you should be putting that here as a part of that script itself. For example, you need to copy some files, then you can use a copy command of Windows and then put source and destination, copy it. And then if you are if you want to install it, then you have a command called as start-process, which invokes what do you call it, as an installer kind of. So you should have little bit understanding on PowerShell commands. These are all basic Windows. You can also use not necessarily a PowerShell command. You can also use normal Windows command as well, right? So if it is a Linux box, then you should be using those Linux commands, whatever are needed, right? So kind of, but yeah, so if that extension is not there, then you should go into your custom script. Very simple.
Okay.
Let what we'll do is when we discuss about the file shares, I want to show this using the file share, because that's how generally it will be. Okay, so we put all of our softwares or things in one repository within the Azure environment. Then from there we will invoke these scripts, and then when you invoke those scripts, what it will happen is it reads that software to which it has software repository and then execute the command.
Oh, okay.
You got that, right? But here
Yeah.
what we are doing is we are executing small commands which doesn't need any softwares to be downloaded or kind of copied to the server. But when it comes to the larger environment, then you may need those as well, right? So but for that we need to have a file share. If I put that file share URIs and other stuff, you will not understand at this point of time. Okay, so once we discuss
Okay.
file
Sure.
share, then I think we will come back to this one side.
Okay, sir.
Even if I forget, just remember, just remind me on that. Okay, so I'm just making a note of that. Right. So this is about the extensions. You may get a question on this in the exam. Just go through the concepts. Okay, very simple, very easy to understand. Go through the concept. All right. So the next thing that what we'll discuss is the disk management. Now, within the Azure, disk itself is a service. That's what we need to understand first. Now I know I'm getting a disk added when I provision a VM, and I can also add a disk at the later point of time as based on my requirement. But what we need to understand is disks itself is a service. So that's the reason it is a different resource altogether, which is getting mapped to your VM, right? If you look at this, my OS disk and some number, a unique identifier. So if you go to this service called as disks, from here you can see all the disks that whatever you have within your environment. And of course, if you go to the owner part, it will tell you what is that which is using this particular disk. Can I create a disk? Of course, you can create a disk from here. You can create a disk from here. And at the later point of time, you can map it to the VM that which you want to use. Or if you don't want to use create a disk from here, you can go to the VM itself, go to the disks, and then you can add a disk from here, a data disk. If you click on the data disk, what does it say? So it will give you a LUN number, a unique identifier to identify your disk, and then it will give you the list of disks that which are available. Right now, I don't have readily available disks. That's why what does it say? There are no managed disks available. Now, if there is already a disk that which is created and readily available, I can go and select that. Now, if you don't have a disk readily available, you can create a disk from here. If I click on this create disk, it will take me to the same, what do you call it, as configuration blade, where I had seen this in the disk services itself, right? The only difference is the location here. It selects the location wherever your VM is, right? I don't have an option to change it, right? But if I go to this disks option, here if I create a disk, then it will give me an option to select it. But whereas from the VM, it will create in the same location where the VM is. And of course, it makes sense, right? So let us say that if you want to attach this disk, that what you want to create from here to a VM in central India, that's what we have right now. But the region here you select is central US. My VM in central India will not be able to see this particular disk because it is in a different region. So the disk that whatever you want to map should be in the same region where your VM is. Otherwise, they will not be able to see these disks because they are in a different region. That makes sense. Now let us say that you want to create a disk. You want to create a data disk. And you have a requirement for your project. You want to go and assign, let us say, 100 GB of data disk. Now, let us say that I want to create a disk. I'm here at the disk services, and I'll select a subscription where the billing should be, and then I'll put it in a resource group. I'll name this as data disk 1. I'll say it my VM, some meaningful naming convention, my VM data disk 1. My VM, whatever I want to tag this particular, map this particular disk to is in central India. I put this the same location. And if you want to use availability zone, you can use it, but central India doesn't have an availability zone, as we know, because that option is not there. If you are selecting some central US, then you get an availability zone option here. And then source type. There are multiple types of sources, blob storage and snapshot, which we'll discuss in our storage concepts, but right now it will be none. And then the size. Now, what you see here is 1024 GB premium SSD disk, which is assigned. If I want to change this, I have to go to the change size. I can select, I can change the storage type, and then I can also go and change the size of the, what do you call it, as disk. Now I can also specify the custom size. Now what is very important, we'll discuss this in our storage, but remember this, based on the size that which you select here, the performance of the disk is getting changed. If you look at 164 GIB, I'll come back, it is not GB, it is GIB, right? So if you read it carefully, it is not GB, it is GIB. Okay, now we'll discuss that what is that GIB, but just remember that it's not GB, it's GIB. There is a little variation, right? So this is 64 GIB. They are putting that in a tiers, and then the IOPS is changing. Now, as you increase the size of the disk, the IOPS as well as the throughput values are changing. So now what you need to understand is, based on the size of the disk, you will get, as you increase the size, you get better performance. Now, if you don't want to use this custom or predefined sizes, I can go and specify here what is the size that which I want. Right, I can specify here size that whatever I want. Now, very important thing that what you need to understand is, you will be charged the same rate for your provisioned disk regardless how much space you are being used. For example, if you are provisioning 100 GIB disk, and you will be billed for all this whether you use it or not. You're getting that, right? So in the managed disk, here whether you use it or not, you will be charged, right? So very important. Now I go and create this one. I don't want to put some tags here, that's okay. And then create it. Now I created a disk, right? Now once this 100 GB disk is created, I can go and attach this disk to the VM to which I want to attach this. Right, so let us wait for this VM to get provisioned, sorry, disk to get provisioned. Right, you can see it here. This is gigabytes, GB. This is what? Gigabytes, GIB. Now there is a little variation here. Now 1 GIB is equals to 0.07 GB, right? So if you go with 4 GIB, you are getting somewhere around 4.29 GB. So that's Azure uses this one GIB rather GB. So you may have to, if it is a small disk, then it doesn't matter much. But if it is kind of a large disk, then you may have to use this calculation to convert that into GBs. Very important. Okay, so 1 GIB is equals to 0.07 GBs. Okay, so very important. So don't get confused there. Okay, so it might be a new term, but yeah, so this is what so you can see it. Gigabit is conversion table here. You can just Google it, you will go and you will get this conversion table. If you want in detail documentation, then you can refer, it's also there in Microsoft documentation, you can refer that, but not needed for us. This is enough. So what we need to know is GIB is different from GB. 1 GIB equals to 0.07 GB. That's all. That's what you need to know. Okay. Now, so let us go back to the disks. Now you see this disk which we created just now is available. Now, did we attach it to anything? No. That's the reason the owner shows as none, right? So if you go here between the disk, you can also see, right, owner of the VM is none. Right, so we'll go to this. We don't discuss this disk, but we'll come back to this. We'll go to the VM, virtual machines. And this is a VM, let us say it needs a data disk. Now I need to attach a disk. So I had already created a disk. So I need to go here to the disk and add data disk. Now I need to go and select the disk that which I had already created. Now it is visible here because it is in the same region and it is created and it is available for us. It is not allocated or assigned to any VM. Or you don't want to use this, you can create, as I said, from here itself, right? Go here and create a disk, and then same options that whatever you had seen there, except that you don't have this option to go and select the location. Now I don't want to create a new one. I want to use the existing 100 GB that whatever I created, right? Just go ahead and save it. Now this disk that whatever you assigned to the VM will be mapped or mounted, we can call it as, right? So we'll go and see within the operating system once this one is done. I'm just waiting for this. Yeah, you can see this is successfully, what do you call it as, mounted. Now let us go back, and it's a normal disk management activity that what you do on any environment, even on your normal on-premises environment, physical or virtual server. What do? You go to the disk management, and then you, what do you call it as, you initiate the disk and then convert that into some volume or whatsoever, right? So that's same stuff. So go to the disk management. You should be able to see a disk with 100 GB attached, right? Now all you need to do is you need to convert this into a volume. Now it's up to you whether you want to create 2 volumes or 1 volume. It's up to you, right? So if you want to divide this into 2 parts, then you can do it, single disk, E and F or whatsoever, based on your requirement. So just normal disk management activity. Now it's your formatting, then you should be able to see your another E volume here, right? Now this is how you can attach a disk to a VM, a data disk or whatsoever. Now another very important thing that what we should know is, let me go back here, where is the size? Now this is the size that what you are using, right? Standard DS1 V2. This is I'm using Azure Spot. That's the reason the size option is disabled. Azure Spot we discussed, right? So Azure can evict this machine anytime for low cost. So let me go back and create a machine here. This is what I'm using, right? Hot Azure Spot instance for later for lesser charges. Now I'm talking about the size. Okay, so this is DS2 V3. Let me go to this size. Now, what you see here is the number of data disks. Very important to understand, guys. Number of data disks. So how many data disks I can attach? 4. So the number of data disks that which you can attach depends on the size that which you select. Now, if you selected this size, you can only attach how many data disks? Only 2 data disks. Third one, when you try to attach, it will not, because that button itself will get grayed out. So the number of data disks depends on the size of the VM that which you select when you provision. Okay, it's very important. So if you look at this VM size is what? DS1 V2, right? So if you go to the size DS1 V2, I can attach up to 4 disks. I will not be able to attach the 5th data disk because this size supports only how many? 4 data disks. And if you want more than that, change the size, attach additional disks. Very simple. Okay.
But so sorry to interrupt, Vijay. So changing the size of the VM once it is provisioned is also possible, but you said no, you cannot.
No, it is possible.
Okay.
No, where did I say that?
So I was
No, it is possible. No, I was saying it is possible, right? So in our demonstration the other day, the VM was up and running. We changed the size, right? All I said is it needs a change management because it gets rebooted. You definitely will be able to change the size. You definitely will be able to change the size. This machine, it is not enabled because I am using this Azure spot capacity, but otherwise you will be able to change the size to whichever you want. And again, depends on the subscription you have. You might not have access to all the sizes. If you are into a trial, then you may not have access to some sizes. If you are into pay as you go, you may not have access to some sizes. That is there. But you will be able to change the size of the VM at any point of time. You can increase the capacity or you can decrease the capacity. Right?
okay, but and do we need to reboot after changing the size, or you don't have to? It'll automatically
Okay,
detect.
so the practice that what we have is take down the server gracefully, power off the server, then increase the size, then power on the server, right? So if you are not doing that, what it does, it anyway reboots your machine, and some of the applications may crash, and you may get into one more problem, right? So yeah, so what is the practice is power of the server, come to the size here, select the size that whatever you want to change to, and save it. Then it changes the size, and then go and power on the server. Then you have your server with the new size. Okay, got it?
Yeah, Vijay, thank you.
Right. Okay, so we had seen how do we attach additional disk. Now let us say now I'm done with using this 100 GB or GIB, whatever. Now I have a requirement to add additional space to this disk. Now you need to go to the disk itself, right? So you need to go to the disk itself, and then you need to go to the configuration, right? Within the disk, you go to the configuration. Now here you have that option of changing the size. But what it says is disks can be resized, right, when the owner VM is deallocated. So what it means is whether it is a data disk or whether it is an operating system disk, in order to change the size of your disk on the VM, you need to deallocate that VM. Very important, right? So either to change the disk size of your OS disk or the disk size of the data disk, you need to take down the server. You need to deallocate the server. It's not normal shutdown, it is stopping the server itself. Then only you will be able to change this particular size, right? So let us try to go back and let us stop this server. Don't do what I'm doing right now in the production environment. Okay, so you need to get into the server, shut down, and then come here and then click on stop after the VM is gracefully shut down. So but here it is a training, and I'm just going directly and stopping it. But in production environment, log into the server, shut down that, then the status will change to stopped, then come here and click on stopped, then it will be stopped and deallocated. Then only you will be able to change the size of the VM.
So Vijay, help me correct myself. So whatever we are doing is all scaling in, right? Concept. Can I say that?
Yeah. So you see, you have to relate two terms. Okay. So I'll help you with that one. Okay. So there is something called as vertical scaling. There is something called as horizontal scaling. Okay, two types of scalings. Vertical scaling means it's like a bar, right? So up in the same bar, which means that you are increasing the size of a VM or decreasing the size of the VM. That is vertical scaling. Within the vertical scaling, you have two actions that which you take. What is that? Scale up, scale down. So if this is a server, let us say my VM. If I am increasing the CPU and memory, if I am increasing it, then what I call it as? I call it as scale up. If I am decreasing this, what I call it as? Scale down. Right? That is what we are doing right now. On a single VM, if you are increasing the resources, decreasing the resources, that is called as vertical scaling. Within the vertical scaling, if you are increasing the resources, you call it as scale up. If you are decreasing the resources, we call it as scale down. Now, when it comes to the horizontal scaling, you will have a group of machines, or let us say cluster of machines. So here, rather increasing the size of the VM, you increase the number of VMs. Let us say initially it is 3 VMs. Now you go and add additional 2 VMs. That we call it as, if you are increasing the VMs here, what do you call it as? It is called as scale out. And if you are decreasing the number of VMs here, we call it as scale in.
Okay, makes sense now.
So vertical scaling, you will be using a terminology scale up, scale down. In horizontal scaling, you will be using a terminology called as scale out and scale in. So you need to relate these terms to this diagram, okay? So vertical scaling, you are increasing on the same server, which means that a bar where you are increasing the things, or on a server, you are increasing the things. That is scale up, scale down. Whereas horizontal scaling, you are expanding the servers within the cluster, right? That is called a scale out. And if you are decreasing the number of servers, you call it as scale in, right? So whatever you do on a VM, it is vertical scaling. Whatever you do on a cluster or a web cluster or whatsoever, it is called as horizontal scaling. And when you increase, you call here as scale out, here as scale up. When you decrease, here you call it as scale in, here you call it as scale down. Okay.
Okay, Vijay. Thank you.
Right. So let us see if this is deallocated. Oh, it is still okay.
While this gets deallocated, so you can create a disk separately through, as a resource separately within the same resource group or a different resource group, however you want, you can do it in the same location or a different location as well, geolocation as well, and with availability zone or without availability zone, however you want, you can create it. Now let's assume
let me correct one thing here. You will be creating in the same location where your VM is. Now, resources are visible in the same, if the resources are in two different regions, let us say disk in US and VM in central India, your VM will not be able to view that disk, reason being it is in a different region. So, so the disk and your VM should be in the same region.
Okay,
go ahead.
So if I have my VM created in central India, and if I'm going to add a disk through my VM, the disk will be created in central India only.
Yes.
But now if I have a VM in central India And if I'm trying to create a resource as a disk as a resource separately, I can create wherever I want. But
Yes.
if I want to map it to my VM, the disk has to be in central India. Otherwise, I will not be able to see it.
Right.
Correct?
Right.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so now you see this VM is in stopped and deallocated state. Let us go to the disks. I am going to my data disk first, right? And within this data disk, where I need to go to the option called as configuration. Now you see this option, right? You can increase the disk here. Let us say I want to add additional 2 GB and save it. Now this increases the size of your disk, data disk. Similarly, let us go to our operating system disk and same option, configuration. Let me try to decrease the size first. Okay, so let us say I want to make it 120 GB. Now what does it say? It says that it should be greater than what? 127 GB. Right? Now the disks can only be resized to a larger size. So when it comes to the operating system disk, you cannot go beyond 127 GB. You can increase that beyond that, right? So as I said, you cannot decrease the size of your operating system, which is around 127 GB. And then only what you can do is you can increase the size. You cannot decrease below 120. That's a standard size of any VM OS disk. And if a requirement is something different, then increase it, but you will not be able to decrease it. That is only for OS disks. Okay. Now, let me say I'm increasing the OS disk as well. Let us say I'm making it as 140 GB. Right. I'll save this. Now you're done with expanding the disks. All right. So let us go back and power on my machine. Right. Let me go ahead and start it. So once I start it, now those disks that which I expanded, I need to kind of go and add it to the existing volume, like how you do it in any desktop or server or whatsoever, right? So the same thing you will be doing here. So you will need to get into the VM and then expand the disk and then add it to the volume, existing volume, or you can create new volume using that space that whatever you allocated just now, right? So let us try to see that. So we are 7:35. Give me a few minutes. I'll be closing this. So I am just getting into the VM. Still not up. Okay, it is. So let me go to the disk management. So you allocated a raw disk, right? So you expanded the disk. So it is not yet added to, this is the unallocated disk that which you just added, right? 13 GB to your disk 0 where your system disk rise. And then of course 2 GB that which you allocated to your data disk. So let me go and first use this, right? So I can convert this into a simple volume and then so you want to create that as a separate volume, you can use that. Or if you want to use this, then what you need to do is here you see an option called as extend the volume, right? Then you can go and add whatever the space that what you have here and then finish it. So if you are willing to go and create this into a separate volume, then you have to use this option. Or if you're expanding this, right? So you have here an option called as extend volume. Or if you want to change this into a separate volume, create a new simple volume or whatsoever. because I want to expand my OS disk from 126 GB to whatever, around 140 GB. I'll just go ahead and extend the volume, right? So, and if you want to allocate all the 13 GB, then you can select it, or if you want to change it from here. But I want to allocate all that stuff, and then you're done with the expanding of your OS disk as well. Now your OS disk is around 140 GB, right? So likewise, you can extend your data disk, you can extend your operating system disk as well. Okay, so this is how you can add additional disks, extend the volumes of an existing disk, or create new volumes using the existing disk as well, right? So that's what it is, and that's how you can configure. Okay, so practice this, create your account if you haven't done it, and practice this. Is very much needed to practice, otherwise you will not be able to kind of do it, right? So play around with this, watch the video once and then play around, then you should be able to do it on your own. If you have any doubts, we can see it tomorrow. Okay,
Thank you,
guys.
Vijay. Thank you,
Yeah.
Vijay.
So one more quick thing. So disks don't allocate too much of space here. If you're using a premium SSD, then you will be charged like anything. So try to use standard SSD most of the times if you're adding additional disk. But yeah, so just allocate a small amount of space rather, allocating some GBs. Even 1 GB, 2 GB will work for you to kind of practice it, right? So very important. Otherwise, you will see some. If you're using trial, then it's okay. But why do you want to spend all that money, right? So use small disks, 1 GB, 2 GB disks. So when you try to attach data disk or extend the disk. Okay. Yeah, we'll stop here. We'll connect tomorrow at the same time. I wish you guys have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay.